Okay, welcome and good afternoon, everyone. We hope you're enjoying the workshop so far. I want to welcome you to our session and with a brief introduction here. Last session, we ran a little tight on time, but if we have some time this session, there'll be opportunities for some Q&A at the end. But I want to introduce to you our presenter today, and please help me welcome Rob Herringer. So Rob's the Director of Coaching Education at United Soccer Coaches, and he holds the United Soccer Coaches Master Coach Diploma. He also has a USSF A license and many professional development certificates and licensures. Coach, we thank you for joining us, coming all the way here. You'll all hear that he's a Kansas City guy and a Kansas City Chiefs fan, but we won't hold that against him. And we welcome, right. So thank you. We really hope that you make this as interactive as possible, and want to hand it over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you in your historic convention. 50 years, that's a lot. And I'm very proud to be here. Yes, I'm coming to you from Kansas City. That's where our national office is located, if you didn't know that. And I am a Chiefs fan. And if you want to run me out of here after the presentation, okay. I've been working out a little bit, so my speed's up to par, I think. I might be able to outrun you. But again, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today. I love talking about systems of play. And I know that you probably like learning about systems of play as well. And what I'm going to present to you today is actually a collection of things that I've been developing over many years. So these are things that I've actually used with my teams, and I hope that I'll paint a picture that may be a little bit different than what you've seen in other presentations about systems of play. And I'm gonna get right into it, hopefully. All right, so here's our little pregame talk, maybe. All right, little pregame talk. So this presentation will only scratch the surface of the 1-3-5-2 shape. And you'll see really quickly that I'm all about flexibility. And I've stolen some things from other great resources and things that have nothing to do with soccer. And hopefully that all comes together in this presentation. But this will only scratch the surface. This is definitely applicable to both boys and girls. I have used it with both boys and girls with some success. And remember, this is just it's just a way. It's not the way. So this may be Rob Herringer's ideas and game model and coaching philosophy that has a lot of support from United Soccer Coaches and U.S. Soccer along the way, but it's not the way. I encourage you to continue to work towards finding your way, how you want your teams to play. And there are a lot of factors that go into that. And hopefully we talk about them. Participate. We're going to do some interaction with each other. You're not just going to listen to me stand in front of you and speak. At least we're going to try to do some interaction, so be open to that. And have an open mind and be willing to think outside the box, because not everything that I talk to you about is maybe something that you've seen or heard of before. If you like something that I share with you today, even if it's one thing I say, one thing that maybe is training related or whatever it might be, share it with someone else. Because then that helps other coaches develop and grow and learn, and maybe they'll have the courage to play in this way too. If we have some time, or we will have some time, I will probably take most of this time. Afterwards, I'll step aside here, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Also, you may email me at any time, and I'll share that email address with you at the end. All right. So I'm going to try to do some interaction with you right now using your cell phones. Most presenters tell you to put your cell phone away. After we do this, you might want to put it away. However, we're going to try it. Doesn't always work great. Technology, is always a challenge. But if you can text, you might need to look at one of these TV screens. But if you can text, instead of putting a person in, put the number in, 22333. And then the actual text, what you write, with no spaces, write Rob Herringer 106. And we'll see if this thing actually works like it's supposed to. ROBHERRINGER 106. 106. And then I want you to answer that question. It's working. That's exciting. All right. So what type of teams do you currently coach? Please let us know. So I'd like to know what the audience is today. And as people answer, you'll see their answers up here on the screen, so you get an idea of what the whole audience is like. College, high school. So a good mix, it looks like. All right, so you're getting an idea of the audience in the room. A lot of older coaches of older players in the room, so that's pretty good for this presentation. I think it'll be very appropriate. However, I will tell you that I've used this with youth teams as well. All right, you guys did great with that. I'm happy. Very good. You ready for another one? Yeah. All right, let's do it. What is your preferred system of play? Now, if nothing else, make sure you put the 1 in there. Right? Because goalkeepers get very irritated if you leave them out of this, and rightfully so. And this one's pretty cool because you'll see what people kind of favor. So the more people who write 1-4-3-3, the bigger 1-4-3-3 gets. A good word cloud here. You like that? All right. Okay. Sir?
I just got a notification that said you can no longer respond to this activity. It has reached the maximum number of responses.
Very good.
Just letting you know.
All right. Thank you very much. So that means everybody's participating and interacting. That's great. All right. So right now, 1-4-3-3 is taking the lead, but there's a good mix of systems throughout the room that you prefer to use. Fantastic. All right. So choosing a game model and system of play. I think a game model is something that is developed over time. That's a very hot topic right now. We had several sessions on developing a game model in Anaheim, if you were in Anaheim. But it's something that takes a lot of time to develop, I think, and to develop properly. So remember, it is a shared understanding of how we want to play, and that's according to Doug Lemov. I'm a Doug Lemov disciple a little bit right now. I think he's excellent at what he does. But here, a shared understanding of how we want to play, and your game model for the team that you're coaching, whether it's a high school, club, college, that might be one way, but maybe you have a personal game model too. And what I'm going to share with you today is more of a personal game model. And obviously, I've used versions of it along the way, but this is how I'd like my teams to play in a perfect situation. But when do we have a perfect situation in any team that we coach? I want you to consider, if your youth coaches out here, what is going to help the most game model system of play-wise for player development? Because we can certainly put together a game model and have our team play in a system that leads to getting results. But is that really what we want to try to achieve in the youth game? And to me, I feel like development should take priority over results. System of play. The system fits the players, or the players fit the system. Think about that. Do the players fit the system, okay, or does the system fit the players? And for me, I've never been blessed with teams that just were super talented, right? We always had to get a little creative with how we wanted to play. And so it was always, these are the players I have, what's the best shape, system, formation, game model I can put them in to be successful? And for me, that was the most fun part, is trying to outwit the other people that I was coaching against. And that's where this 1-3-5-2 kind of came from, is we've got good players, not great players. We've got some situations where we have, you'll learn that when I was coaching collegiately, we had 3 center backs who played in one of the best teams that I ever coached. I don't take credit for that, it's them. But 2 out of the 3 were recovering from ACL injuries. And as a young coach, I would always be told, hey, look, you can't play three in the back unless you're really fast and really athletic. But what about those two guys who were coming off ACLs and they weren't as fast as they have been? They weren't as athletic as they were. But why were we successful playing that way? We'll talk about that. Always consider the qualities of your players when you're choosing how you want your team to play. And remember, you always have to have piano movers and piano players. You can't just have a team full of piano movers, right? That could be some ugly soccer. But you can't just have piano players either, can you? You can't just have creators over the field. You got to have people that want to do the dirty work. So it's got to be a mix. Warriors and artists is one that I like to use as well. And then consider, as you're developing your game model, your system of play, how you want your team to play, consider what you're going to come up against, obviously, right? And one big advantage of this that we're going to talk about today is a lot of people, a little bit more now within the last 2 or 3 years, but not a lot of people know how to play against it. And that gives you an advantage. So keep that in mind as well. The last thing, I'm going to get on my soapbox just for 2 seconds and ask you this question because I see it. I've been in many different places in the world, seeing academies and clubs and how they develop players. And you'll oftentimes see, even in the MLS, you'll see teams who say, we're going to play the same way from the time they're 11U all the way to the pro. Same system, same style of play, same game model. Well, what happens when that young player who's been through that academy system then gets sold? Or then they don't play anymore, and they go play for their high school team, or they play for their college team. They have no idea how to play in a different way. And so we actually, in my opinion, we do them a disservice by making them and forcing them to play in one way throughout the club system. So just something to think about. I encourage you, when you're choosing how you want your team to play, to do your homework. I am a soccer nerd. That's why I'm standing in front of you today. No other reason. Hard work and the fact that I just loved learning about the game. And I encourage you, you would not be here today if you weren't trying to learn more about the game, to be a better teacher of the game. So read your books, read your articles, follow people online. You don't have to take all of their ideas, but hearing them and seeing how they're putting them into use, very helpful when you're developing your own game model and system of play. One important thing, too, is I strongly believe in athlete input. Even at the youth game, you can have your players have input on how they want to play. I remember when the college team I was referring to earlier, I remember I came to them in the spring season. You had the benefit of the spring season. And I said, hey, I think I want us to play in a 1-3-5-2. And you should have seen the looks on their faces. I mean, just fear, really. That, and they thought I was crazy, okay, which isn't anything new. Okay, but I had a team captain come to me and say, we can't play that way, coach. There's no way. We cannot play with 3 center backs. Nobody's used to doing it. And so I had the advantage. I had a whole spring season to convince them. And you'll see that things went okay. We have to meet the needs of our players, so we have to make sure that our education is right so that we can educate our players. And there's no substitute for experience. And that's why I encourage you to at least try it. If you have the right players, if it makes sense for you, try it. Have the courage to try it. I had a colleague when I came in as a men's college coach, colleague, friend, I played for him, who said, you cannot play 3 in the back at the collegiate level with men. You'll get shredded. So what did I do as a young college coach? I was a college coach at 25. What did I do? Huh? No, I was a young coach, so I did what I was told. And I didn't have the courage. Now, that's me coming off of coaching high school and club where I played 3-4-3. For the longest time, I was an Anson Dorrance disciple. Okay? 3-4-3, 1-3-4-3, I should say. And so I believed him. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is don't listen to the noise. Play the way you want your team to play based on their qualities and have the courage to try something new. All right, in my game model, my personal game model, the theme is always attack. So we're going to attack with the ball, and we're going to attack without the ball. When winning the ball back, immediately after winning the ball back, we want to counterattack quickly. This presentation is perfect to follow, I think, Coach Waldrum, because he talked about counterattacking and defending low and those kind of things. If you didn't see it, it was fantastic. But once we win the ball, we want the first attacker to dribble the ball forward if there's space to dribble forward, connect a pass, or what's the other thing? Shoot. Yeah. So if we win the ball back high up the pitch, then we want them to know that they can go and play, and they can go attack, and they can go score goals. And then I like to steal a line that I've heard from a colleague of mine: look long to play short. So as soon as we win it, can we drive forward? Can we shoot? And if not, can we pass forward? But we want to see if we can play the furthest pass forward that we can while still maintaining possession. It's not kick and run at all. So look long. Can I play a longer ball in and still maintain possession? If not, I kind of check down and play shorter. But the most important thing is immediately in transition, we must connect the first pass. Because we do not want to get like we're trying to counter, we don't want to get recountered. And that's the worst thing that you could possibly do is win the ball back and give it right back to the other team. Because what happens once you win the ball back? Your players start opening up, hopefully, right? The game starts opening up a little bit, and in that moment, if you give it right back, boom, you're exposed to the counterattack. So keep that in mind. We talk about, and I put these in bold because these are phrases that I use with players and teams. And I'm a big believer in using short, sharp phrases to help players remember and to paint pictures in their minds. So these are phrases that I will use as part of my game model. And as I teach the team how we want to play, these little phrases paint pictures in their minds, and they're good reminders. So I'll say, look long to play short, or stretch the field. Once we win possession, establish possession, we want to get wide. We want to get deep. We want to stretch that field as big as we can so it's easier to play through the opponent or around them or maybe even over them. So again, passing progression, we win it. Connect the first pass if you can. If you cannot dribble or shoot. First, look to pass forward. If you can't pass forward, we want to pass diagonally. And if you can't pass diagonally, we obviously will pass back so we can maintain possession. And that's the progression of passing that I like to see with our teams. Look for opportunities to switch the point of attack with diagonal passes. I always tell players and teams, sneak a peek. We're on one side, can you sneak a peek? Is it on to go to the other side? Maybe it's not, but I still want to see it sneaking a peek. Incision runs and passes in the build-up zone. So a favorite thing that I like to train is runs in behind defenses and passes in behind defenses. Incision run, incision pass. I stole that incision piece from my friends at Celtic in Scotland. They use that all the time. And the words you use paint different pictures for your players, right? So if you use the word incision instead of through pass, it paints a different picture in the minds of your players a little bit. So we want to cut open a defense. We want to punish a defense. And obviously these words that I'm using now are a little bit more appropriate for older players. But since we polled the audience, we know who we're talking to here. I believe in having every player involved in the attack, including the goalkeeper. So they need to be involved in the build-up at all times in training so that they're prepared to do it in a game. Transition. Again, we've talked about this already. What do we do in the moment that we win the ball? Can we play forward? Dribble, pass, shoot. And then on the other side, we want to put pressure on the ball immediately. So for me and how we defend, and we'll talk about defending here in a second, it was very important that as soon as we lost the ball that we put immediate pressure on the ball. Now why? You're going to say, well, to prevent a goal, not letting them go forward. Those are all correct. Okay, but here's the thing, and I'm just being real with you. I'm just a coach from the Midwest. Okay, when we gave the ball away, it made me nervous. Yeah, because we weren't necessarily that great at defending. And so we wanted to value possession, and we wanted to make sure we didn't give the ball away. But as soon as we did, we had to put pressure on the ball. And I felt like pressuring as high up the pitch as possible was the best thing to do, because then it gave us opportunities, if we did win it, to go right to goal. Yeah? So keep in mind, had good players, not great players, and we had to be a little bit more creative with how we wanted to play. Without the ball, attacking without the ball. Again, painting pictures in the minds of your players with the words that you use. Intensity, aggressive mindset to win the ball back. I had an instructor, educator tell me one time as I was taking a course, defending is a red topic, meaning it's very important. It's crucial. It's crucial to whether you win or lose games. So we had to spend a lot of time teaching players how to defend. And when we trained it, we had to make sure that the intensity and aggression was there. So what does that mean? Well, that means me as a coach, you as a coach, you have to motivate your players in a positive way to get them to understand how important it is to defend. And not just defend by themselves or in pairs, but as a team. Again, we protected the middle of the pitch. So what did that mean? Everything we forced was wide, away from the middle of the field. I've seen, and I've done it myself, where we've had teams, you have teams that defend differently in the different thirds of the field or different halves of the field. I think that's great if you have the teams to do that. But especially coming off a job where I was recently an executive director of a club, and we played in the middle of America where everyone bangs it. They do. Okay? We forced everything outside. And that limited their options. And then what did we have to talk about if everybody banged it long? Getting pressure on the ball as soon as possible so they don't have time and space to hit a ball over us. Because if that happened, we were in trouble. Because we were not as athletic, yeah? Attempt to win the ball back in the attacking half of the field if we can. Protect the middle of the pitch. Protect the goal. That's the most important thing. So if our press, since we were pressing immediately after losing the ball, if our press was broken, then if you were here in the last session, seeing players sprinting back into position was crucial to our success. And again, we had to train that mentality in the whole group. And then, of course, every player is involved in the attack. Every player is involved in defending. And we defend from front to back. So we defend from the front. We expect our forwards to defend just as hard as our backs or our midfielders. All right. As a club director, I did not tell everybody that they had to play a 1-3-5-2 or a 1-4-3-3. I don't believe, again, in a club-wide system of play, because every team, even in a club, is different, and the players are different, and you need to set them up in a way that they're going to be successful. So maybe not all teams can play a 4-3-3, a 1-4-3-3. They don't have the players to do it, so why do it? It doesn't make sense to me. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the diagrams here, the shapes. And for me personally, I like to show from back to front. I like to show diagrams the way the players see the diagrams. It makes more sense to me. So you'll have two simple starting positions or starting shapes with the 1-3-5-2. Basically, the differences are just in how we shape the central midfield, whether you use two defensive midfielders or holding midfielders or one. The back three is the same no matter how we play. That doesn't change. We can do some different things with the 7 and 11 on the outside, and certainly what we do with 2 9s up front. And I put a little star next to the word numbering because this is how I choose to number a 1-3-5-2. It varies no matter where you look, but everybody's a little bit different on how they number them. But these were the numbers that I have used in the past. So why a 1-3-5-2? Natural width and depth. That was the most important thing for me, especially at the youth level. I found that very, very helpful. It wasn't hard to teach players how to establish width and depth in a 1-3-5-2 shape. The advantage of this, a big advantage of this, is being able to potentially get more playmakers on the field if you're blessed with a lot of playmakers. Central midfielders. Every player on this field can be a playmaker in this shape. Think of it that way. Even the 3 center backs. And we'll talk about that a little bit. You have a greater chance to outnumber your opponent in midfield, and it can be used as an attacking or defensive shape. It's very, very flexible. I have played it in a way where we had 5 across the back and a diamond in midfield with 1 lone striker. And we played that way against, we played in the NAIA. I know that's not very popular around these parts, but it's very popular in the Midwest. There's a lot of great NAIA programs and a lot of really good soccer in the NAIA, believe it or not. But we played an NCAA Division II team in the regular season. They were better than us. We knew it. So we played a 5-diamond 1. A 1-5-diamond 1. And we tied that team. And we didn't defend the whole time. We actually scored a goal. So I'm proud of that. Okay? I'll show that here in a second. All right. I mentioned that I'm from the Midwest, and we see a lot of 4-4-2. And we see a lot of 2 strikers running hard forward in behind. And so in my experience, it's really hard, especially at the youth and high school levels, to have 2 center backs try to contain 2 strong, fast center forwards. Again, makes me nervous, right? I don't want to have that 2v2 situation. So that's another reason why you consider playing with 3 in the back. If you play a lot of teams that play with 2 up front, you always have that advantage, that numerical advantage. It creates a lot of problems for the opposition to solve if you play it the right way. And again, very few teams have experience playing against it. So you have that advantage, which I've always liked, being more clever than the other coach. Midfielders can combine forwards, and we can have all kinds of fun runs from midfield. Obviously, it lends itself to counterattacking opportunities, but it also leads to a lot of fun for your players. Players enjoy playing in this shape once they get a feel for it and understanding for it, and they're comfortable with it. I've heard people call it a swashbuckling style of playing, right? And I kind of like that. It kind of fits my personality. That you can just kind of go for it. You put your players in the shape and the system, and you just kind of go for it and allow them to have fun doing it. Weaknesses. If you have players who don't understand how to play it, it's going to probably be a disaster, at least initially. And so you have to be willing to go through that initial phase where they're just not getting it and maybe they're getting frustrated. And that's the beauty of being a coach, is you get an opportunity to convince them, motivate them, show them why they can be really successful playing this way. If it's frustrating, if it's disorganized, then it's no fun. So keep that in mind. And you're going to have to combat that a little bit with your teams and your players. If the wingbacks, or whatever you call them, wingbacks, wingers, if they don't get forward, if they don't help with the attack and defense, then you're going to put yourself in a jam. And it's a lot of work. It can be a lot of work for the wingers, if they don't play smart. And then again, that's where your role as the coach comes in, teaching them the moments when they should go or when they should stay. Or they're really, really tired, and they know they're supposed to go, but it's okay this time. Let's just hold. You got to get them to feel comfortable with their roles and responsibilities in the shape. If the central midfielders do not support the forwards, it's ineffective. Period. Because what happens is you get 2 strikers running against a back 4, maybe a holding midfielder, maybe 2, and then the rest of the team is lagging behind. It's a good way to lose the ball and not be effective in the attack. So you have to put in the work in central midfield. And those players have to make supporting runs and help those forwards out, or else they get very, very isolated. And the midfielders may have a little bit less room to work just because there's more of them. So keep that in mind. That's another weakness that you have to sort out as a coach. This is the big one, and this is why a lot of people choose not to play this system, and that is because of the space that you give up. So you know what your strengths are, you know what your weaknesses are. How do you combat those weaknesses and minimize them as much as possible. They're not going to go away, but do you have a counter to that? So you're going to concede space. I mentioned Anson not long ago. Anson would always talk about not giving other teams staging areas where they can knock the ball around and decide how they want to attack. Okay? And in my case, we didn't want to give them these staging areas where they could pick their head up and just bang a ball over the top, because again, that was dangerous for us. We didn't like that. Even if you can teach them all you want about how do you deal. Well, read the pressure on the ball, drop, get side on, pinch together, be ready to run when the ball's played over the top, right? But still, you have to take the time to make sure that you teach this to your players, and how do we deal with these weak areas of the field. You can be vulnerable to quick counterattacks, so keep that in mind. And again, your center backs must always read the pressure on the ball, because you're going to be vulnerable in those areas that I'm showing you, and you could be vulnerable over the top. And then my question for you, and I know you're all thinking about this right now, how do I play this with my teams? Hopefully you are anyway. What do you do against a front three? Because I told you I didn't like the 2v2. Well then, why would I like the 3v3? You know? So think about this. Yeah? Because you might be able to share it with your partner there, your neighbor there here in a second. All right? Because we'd all handle it a little bit differently. Here's how I chose to deal with it. Sorry, I keep hitting the mic. I'm going to just give you what my answer is, but I want you to think about this critically too, because maybe you'd do it a little bit differently. We talked about forcing play wide, and then we force into this staging area, right, where we kind of let them have the ball, but we bait them into having the ball there so we can press it and win it back. This is what makes a lot of people nervous, but this is how I chose to combat it playing a 1-3-5-2. The ball goes wide to a wing back, opponent's wing back, and again, we're working this way. We would use a check down system, almost like in the NFL with a quarterback, right? First option, second option, third option. And I'll tell you that it worked pretty well. When we lost the ball and we immediately pressed and couldn't win the ball back, we would immediately get back into our starting positions as quick as we can. And I liked to have the wing backs a little further back, more like not a back five, but kind of like, yeah, sort of. But it's a check down system. So if the ball goes wide into the wing back in that staging area, our first option is, can a forward go over and put pressure on the ball? Definitely. Okay. If that player passed the forward, or they just couldn't get there, something happened in the game, they couldn't get there, the second option would be to have an attacking midfielder slide over, because I loved playing with one holding and two attacking. So the second option would be the attacking midfielder coming over. Third option would be the wing back. Because again, when we were defending, I just wanted to keep the game in front. Did it always happen as perfectly as that? Absolutely not. But that's how we trained it, and that's how we wanted to see our team play on game day. Now, you see this little dialogue box here. Very impressive, right? A dialogue box. When the wing back would go was actually not up to the wing back. It was up to the center back next to them. So when the center back was good, everything was covered, no risk if the wing back goes forward, he or she would tell that player that they could go in that third option. So keep that in mind. We assess the situation. I'm okay with letting you go. Go. Again, not the way, a way. We found it to be very successful doing it this way. What about the holding midfielder in this situation? If you get pulled out of shape, if things don't happen the way that you plan, the benefit of having just one number 6, one holding midfielder, is that they can drop into the back line and give you an extra number. And that's kind of your safety net. If something goes wrong and you need to get that numerical advantage in the back, you can always drop that 6 back. So that's something that you need to consider training as well. All right. I show you this diagram because this is what we had the most trouble with defending against. It was against a 1-4-2-3-1, which is a very popular shape. And you see it all over the place now. 10, 15 years ago, you never saw 4-2-3-1. But it's very, very popular now, very effective. So I show you this because obviously you have situations that probably make you nervous when you look. You have to have an idea of how you're going to combat this again, because it's going to happen. So again, the ability to force play wide and make their play predictable is very, very important. Didn't like the ball being central. Felt like they had more options that way. So when we could isolate them to one side of the field, we were able to deal with this front three a little bit better. Certainly in midfield, you could man mark if you chose to. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't, depend on the opponent. But if the ball came out here, for example, okay, and this center back said go, this center back would have to slide over. We're good here. Okay, if this forward wants to make a run across, great. But we would always bring the opposite side wing back, drop them in, so that we would have that numerical advantage in the back. Again, because it made us feel a little bit safer, a little bit more secure doing it. If you want to play man-to-man, totally fine. But for me, this is how we would combat this situation, playing against a 1-4-2-3-1. Okay, again, release the wing back, slide over, drop in the wing back from the other side. So at the moment, you are kind of playing with 4 in the back. Okay, variations. So not that long ago, 14 out of 20 Premier League teams played out of a 1-5-2-3. That's not that long ago. So there's something there, right? There's a reason why those teams were starting to go back to the 1-3-5-2. Now remember, this system's been around forever, but it's been gone forever too. It's just making a resurgence a little bit. Back in 2020 and 2021, we had a bunch of PL teams that were playing this shape, okay? But they were playing more of a 5 across the back. Well, there's probably reasons for that, right? Results-driven decisions. We want to win games, so we got to defend first. Yeah? Then this is the shape that I was talking about earlier with my college team, where we were playing against the NCAA Division II team. So we played essentially a 5 across the back, a diamond in midfield, and a number 9 up top. Defensively was awesome. Attacking-wise, not as awesome at times, right? But I told you that we were able to tie that game. We tied that game on a counterattack. So we defended hard together, and we exploited the space in behind them. And that's what a 1-3-5-2 can do for you. Or in this case, a 1-5 diamond 1. How are we doing? All right. Huge fan of the 1-3-4-3 too. So I talked about flexibility at the beginning of the presentation. Whatever shape you choose, you should have ideas on how that shape is going to flex and change depending on what happens in a game. And that was the advantage of playing in a 1-3-5-2, that you could easily morph into a 1-3-4-3, down by a goal, need a goal, whatever the situation might be. And so playing in this way, hey, with the 1 holding and the 2 attacking, it was easy just to maybe push one of those attacking midfielders forward. Those players usually like to go forward anyway, most of them. Okay, and you say, okay, you get to play center forward now. What player doesn't like that, right? And then just maybe adjust this attacking midfielder over so you're playing more of a big diamond there. And if you're playing with 2 holding mids, pushing that attacking mid up, that's easy to do. It's very flexible. Okay, I have the great advantage of trying to reinforce everything that I'm talking about with you here on the field here in a little while. These are some of the training exercises that you can use to help train the 1-3-5-2 shape. The first game I name all my games so that players know what the games are. We can get into them a little quicker once they get familiar with the games. All mixed up, I'm going to show today. I was thinking about not showing it, but I think it's very appropriate for the shape and how we teach it. Certainly, you see in here, you're eventually getting to playing with a 3, whether that's 3 midfielders or 3 backs, wing backs on the outside, number 9s up top. So you'll see that game if you come to the session at 5:30. The next game, or another game that you can play, is this Don't Stay Home game, where obviously you work with 3 midfielders or 3 backs and 2 midfielders or 2 forwards. and they're playing on two different sides of the field. Again, a good progression from that to this because you're using your wing backs too. Again, I hope I show this to you clearly in a little bit. And then some progressions to those activities, where we put the wingers, what their the conditions are of the game, whatever it might be. So I hope I can show some good pictures of that. And then certainly finishing your training with a game that resembles the bigger game a little bit. So an 8v8 game. Coach Waldrum expertly talked about using triggers in your training activities. How do you restart play? How do you get that repetition? So a possible trigger for this game would be, hey, we're going to begin every new ball with a throw-in. And I like using throw-ins as triggers for many reasons, but one, how often do you give the ball away on a throw? Too often. I like that answer. Okay? It's a 50-50 thing most of the time. So training how we throw the ball in and training to keep possession is very, very important, and I don't know if we do that enough as coaches. Another thing that's very important is winning the ball back immediately on their throw. And so one little rule that we would use a lot of times, and to this day I would still use it, and that is we mark on throw-ins. We man mark on throw-ins so that we have a better chance to try to win the ball back in counterattack. Okay? But if you're struggling in with throw-ins, or if you're struggling, use those as triggers so the players get repetitions on how to deal with that a little bit better. One thing that we haven't talked about is you can shape your midfield differently. Can't really shape your back three that different. Your wingers are pretty fixed, but you could obviously play your forwards high and low if you want to. And that classic partnership of like big, strong forward and quick forward, there's a lot to that. Having two players that are a little bit different and can complement each other rather than having two that are identical. But we don't always have the advantage of having two players like that, do we? I, thankfully, when playing 1-3-5-2 at the collegiate game, had that. And it was awesome. And so hopefully you'll have that same experience as well. All right. Systems of play are like a blanket that's torn in half. Think of it that way. So you got a blanket, keeps you warm at night, but we tore that in half. So you got to decide, where do I put the blanket? Do I put it on my bottom half? Do I put it on my top half? Maybe over my face so I don't see any light? I don't know. Just being goofy. But that's another Anson quote. And you have to maximize the strengths and manage the weaknesses. Keep that in mind. See, it sounds very simple, but actually can be very hard to do when playing out of this shape. Coaches must learn how to train teams in each system. I believe as a coach, you should be familiar with playing in attacking, defending, and transitions in every shape. So what does that mean? Well, you can read a lot. You can follow people on social media or whatever it is, but there's no substitute for taking a course on how to play in different systems or how to train your team to play in different systems. And we actually have one called the Premier Diploma, which we're very proud of. Where we explore different systems. Every day is a different system, and then toward the end of the week, we actually have different systems play against each other. So we can talk about all these things that I'm talking to you about right now. So I encourage you to look into the Premier Diploma. We all know the 4 moments in the game. When we have it, when they have it, the moment we lose it, the moment we get it back. We got to train those moments. But no matter what we choose, we always have to account for the principles of the game. So this is where some interaction is going to come. You did a lot of sit and get here. I want you to think for a second. Can you name the principles of the game on the attacking side, on the defensive side? I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Write them down, store them up here, but we're going to see if we know the principles of the game in America. American principles of play. Oh, just write them down. I'm giving you 30 seconds. You already have 10 gone. Maybe I'll give you a little more than 30. Test yourself. All right, that was 1 minute. Now, share with someone next to you. Could be next to you, behind, whatever. Okay? See if they came up with the same answers. Go. I'll help you out in a second. Maybe. You're getting there. Got him up.
You Googling?
Who's Googling? 30 seconds.
That's just your game model.
I'm going to tell you.
True.
You got compactness. All right, that's time. Anybody want to take a stab at it? All right, let's do the defensive. Go ahead.
Pressure, cover, balance, compactness, but I can never remember.
Pressure, cover, balance, compactness. Oh, okay. Sure. Thank you.
I'll do 4 out of 5. Pressure, cover, balance, compactness. I never remember the 5th.
Okay. That was pretty good. Anybody else? Oh, we only have one brave soul in here. If this was my team, you're getting cold called. Here, go on and say it. Let's do attacking now.
This is what I had. So I had width, depth, mobility, penetration, and improvisation.
Okay, that's attacking. Ooh, that's really good. Well done. Did you come up with that by yourself, or did you have your teammate help you? All right, it was a collaborative effort. All right, great. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. So it's very important for you to know the principles of the game and then train the principles of the game. And no matter what you train, how you want your team to play, the principles always have to be present, period. According to United Soccer Coaches, these are the principles of play. So the attacking side did an awesome job. Defensively, almost got them all. Well done. Okay, so penetration, dribbling, passing, shooting, support, whether that's close or a little bit further away, depends on where we're on the field, pressure on the ball, where the opponents are, width, depth, mobility, and creativity. What is mobility? Movement. Okay, we have to train movement. Every team that I work with struggles with movement, at least recently. How do you move to support your teammates? How do you move to get in dangerous positions? Incision runs. Remember me talking about that earlier? Okay. Defensively, pressure, cover, balance, compactness, and concentration. I like both of those words. Okay. You'll see compactness on its own sometimes in this country, but compactness is vertically. Okay, so stepping. Concentration is then forcing them to one side, so they're playing in a very, very small area. And if you think back to that diagram that I showed you of the 1-3-5-2, that's exactly what we tried to do. Compact and concentrate into those little pockets of pressure where they couldn't get out. Invite them to get in there and don't let them out. Then again, I stress the 4 moments of the game, that we must train the 4 moments of the game as well. All right, what prevents you from experimenting with 3 at the back? Okay, speak to somebody else next to you, not the same person. Okay, go. What prevents you from experimenting with it? Make a new friend.
feel as though they don't know it. Know our system.
What do you coach? U16 boys.
All right, and time. Eyes up here.
That's my thing.
Eyes up here. I love it. See, you could carry on this presentation for an hour without me, right? That's good. You're going to learn something, hopefully, from me today, but you're going to learn a lot from each other, hopefully, too. And sometimes you learn more from each other than you do from your educators. So keep that in mind. So, what were some of the answers? What prevents you from experimenting?
Communication and movement with the defense. Like
Huge.
getting them to talk in general is something that we have difficulty with.
We're probably going to talk about that today in the field session because it comes up in every field session. The American kids do not like to communicate with each other on the field. That's true.
They don't have their
Okay.
phone.
All right, now you're going down to a different rabbit hole. All right, hold on, stay with me. Yep.
So at the high school level, you have limited time. Do you have enough time in 3 weeks to put in a brand new system?
Amen.
You already know before that.
Been there. And then you play, at least where I'm from, you play 3 or 4 games in a week. You never have a chance to train. You're just recovering. Yeah? So great comment.
Fear and resistance from the players.
Fear and resistance from the players. I mentioned that, right? When I brought it to my team, and they're like, are you kidding me? Yeah?
Seems sort of similarly, we were talking about team dynamics. So there's, if they're willing to trust each other, the age of the kids.
Yeah.
And also, like, sometimes they just simply don't like each other and don't want to, goes back to the communication.
Chemistry.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, huge. Anyone else? One more. Oh, yeah. Got to have a strong goalkeeper. I'm not going to deny that, but we all need strong goalkeepers no matter what shape we play. All right.
Didn't have somebody back there that felt confident they could
Okay. Reading the game. Backs that can read the game. I had a center back, one of the ACL guys, right? Center back. He played collegiate soccer technically for 6 years because he had 2 ACLs, the same knee. Okay? But he's a really good player, and he was our team captain. He played right in the middle of the back 3 this year. His senior year, last chance that he gets to play, right? He was a first-team All-American. I'm so proud of that. Okay? Because how we decided to play, it brought out the best in him, his leadership, his ability to read the game. Okay? And again, that's an example of we're choosing, thankfully, choosing the right way to play based on the players that we have. Okay, so that kid's very close to my heart. You're going to get a quote from him in a second. What now intrigues you about experimenting with 3 at the back? Anyone?
I think it's going to force you to communicate.
Okay, good.
I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to talk more because it's more tactical. There's more tactical work that goes into it.
It's going to force you to communicate. True, and that's a good thing. Right? Yeah,
Without necessarily changing your shape, you can make it offensive or defensive.
exactly. Very flexible. I love flexibility. Yeah.
I think it forces your team to try to play on the front foot, play in their third, certainly their half. I would say let's defend half like it's the goal.
Yeah?
Play in their half.
Great. Okay, good stuff. You're all thinking about this. And see, that's what makes a presentation a little bit better when you're starting to participate in it and you're getting your wheels turning a little bit. And all of you on Monday are going to start training your teams in the 1-3-5-2, right? Okay. So I talked about getting player input at the very beginning. I feel like it's very valuable to get player input, to have them be part of this process. It doesn't matter if you coach college team, a high school team, club team. I think player input's really, really important. And how you do that's up to you as a coach. But I actually quoted them after we played this season. It was way back in 2012, and it was that long ago. Okay, But we won the double. We won a regular season championship and a conference tournament championship playing in a shape that none of our players knew how to play before we started it. And so these are 2 quotes from two of the 3 center backs. Fernando being the first team All-American. Okay? Why don't more teams play with 3 at the back? And you see the answer there from my players. Very, very intelligent answers, by the way. Got to be proud of that, too. Okay? Here's some final thoughts, and then I have a little bit of time, I think, to show you a little bit of video. So that'll help paint the picture a little bit. We have to make in-game adjustments. So your players need to know how to adjust to you making adjustments. So you got to train that. And we played, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, but we played in my game model, which was called a style of no style. It's based on Jeet Kune Do. Who created Jeet Kune Do? Bruce Lee. You and I are best friends now. Okay? Not that I was a huge martial arts fan or anything like that, but I watched a documentary on Bruce Lee one time, and I actually did a term paper my senior year in high school on Bruce Lee. It didn't go over well with the teacher. Okay? However, that was the beginning of me discovering, little did I know, my game model, how I wanted to play. Jeet Kune Do is style and no style. That's what it means. Take what the opponent gives you. Be capable of countering whatever the opponent does. And that was our game model. And it falls right in line with Tony Dungy wrote an amazing book called Quiet Strength. And he talked about wanting his teams in the NFL to play like tornadoes and not hurricanes. Tornadoes, where I'm from, those happen a lot. Okay? And they're very unpredictable, and they scare the heck out of people because they're unpredictable. You don't know when they're going to come, and if they come, they can be very devastating. Yeah? But a hurricane, however, usually you can plan for that. Not 100%, but you can warn people ahead of time, hey, this thing's coming. And they have the choice whether they leave or stay. Be tornadoes and not hurricanes. Be tornadoes and not hurricanes. Be unpredictable. Be able to strike whenever you need to strike. And devastate your opponent when you need to do that too. Okay? Don't be a hurricane. Don't be predictable. Have a plan B if plan A doesn't work. 1-3-5-2 doesn't work. We know it's flexible. What do we flex into? Well, hopefully we've trained that. So what if you haven't trained it, but you have to go to it to get a result? Your players have to be comfortable and trust that you're making the right decisions, right? We have a lot of parents in the room. I used to show a picture next of SpongeBob SquarePants, right? And who was the little guy that was Plankton, who was always trying to steal the recipe for the Krabby Patties, right? Plankton had Plan Z to get the Krabby Patties. And I felt like, you know what? That's kind of a coach. You kind of have to have plans A through Z ready to go. And your players have to be able to adjust to whatever you pull out there. I encourage you to think about putting together positional job descriptions for your players so they know what their roles and responsibilities are in the different positions they play in whatever shape you choose. And again, player input's always really good. So at the collegiate level, we wrote together positional job descriptions, and then we would put a picture of one of our players from currently or the past who embodies that position. And that was really, really cool. And that was a motivation for some players, that they wanted to have their picture there on that job description, right? I don't know how we came up with that, but that was effective. Find specific players for your kids to watch. Kids can watch soccer all the time, right? Back when I was growing up, you'd get lucky to get a World Cup game, right? Or an MLS game when it started in '96. Kids can watch soccer all the time. They've got the technology to do that and have these players do these things together. All right. We must expose players to a variety of modern game models that incorporate zonal defending. Believe it or not, a lot of kids don't know how to defend zonally when they get out of high school. Okay, but they really need to be able to combine zonal and man marking the further they go in their careers. Okay, teach them different game models and systems, And again, the style of nose, that's actually from San Francisco. Right? I took that picture when I was on a walk. That's so cool, so relevant. All right. Your kids need to know how to play when they get out of high school, okay, or as they're going through high school. They got to be able to play in formations with 3, 4, and 5 backs. They got to be able to play in systems with 3, 2, and 1 forward. They have to be exposed to these different things because at some point they're not going to play for you. They're going to play for someone else. So they need to be prepared. We would say in the club that I just came from, we want our kids to be armies of one. Remember that slogan from the U.S. Army? Armies of one. You've got skill, a skill set that's going to help you no matter what shape you play in, game model you play in, or coach you play for. All right. I'm going to quickly being the key word, hopefully show you some video of this 1-3-5-2. I hope. Can you see that? Get bigger. Here we go. Black team is us. Good, so just patient build up, having the ability to keep the ball. But now we've lost it. So look at this. That's forward, option 1. That's the wing back. That's the attacking midfielder. So real quick. What we eventually get, kinda, not perfectly, but in this situation, this is this pocket of pressure that I was talking about. Forward, attacking midfielder, wing back. Now, why did that wing back go before the attacking midfielder? Because he was told to by his center back. Keep that in mind, okay? So you'll see a lot of hard work goes into this. But they bought in to the hard work. And then what did it amount to, or what did it get us? Wins. And then when you win, then they really buy in, right? We won the ball back. Now we're going to go a little more direct. And that kid was really fast. We'd take it, yeah. All right, I'm going to show you 2 more clips, hopefully. Let's see what this one looks like. So this is our goalkeeper has possession. He rolls it out to a center back, holding midfielder, center back, holding midfielder. So you got to have a holding midfielder that likes getting on the ball. This kid did. Center back, wing back. A little bit more direct, but that's okay. We talk about mixing indirect and direct soccer up. That's style and no style, right? So testing the opponent is okay. Counterattack. Questionable. So you see, we make a real effort once we win it back to keep it. So I love showing these clips because they actually were playing the way I was coaching them to play, right? But we stay with it, right? It's just relentless. Okay. I have lots more to show you, but I'm running out of time. So before I finish, I want to come back to this real quick and kind of finish with this thought. Michael Cox, I told you I was a soccer nerd. I read all the time. Michael Cox, he's written some really, really good books and articles, and he used to do what's called zonal marking, I think, or zonal defending, where he would actually analyze Premier League games or World Cup games. It was brilliant, and he stopped doing it probably because it took so much time and effort. But he wrote a book called The Mixer. I'd definitely look into The Mixer by Michael Cox. But this was a quote from him here not too long ago, January 2022. If you know that the system's made a comeback, right? But then it's dropped off again here recently. It's just funny how the cycles work, you know? But it creates problems for the opponent. It's fun to play, okay? And yes, it might be a little bit complicated or a little bit out of the norm, but if you take that risk and you're willing to go outside the box, then you can be very, very successful. This is my contact information. I am always happy to communicate with people who've done anything with me. You were brave enough to come watch this presentation, and I am very honored to be here and to try to help you out. Let's not let it end here. I'm happy to be a resource for you. Right now, I'm starting month 6 on the job at United Soccer Coaches, and it is definitely like drinking from a fire hose. However, I am definitely happy to help out anyone who ever thinks that I can be of assistance. So please reach out. Again, thank you so much for being here. This is an honor. I hope you have a
Good
great
job.
convention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for introducing us to the non-traditional, non-standard 1352, which everyone is probably going to start working on Monday. Good luck to your Kansas City Chiefs next weekend. We will be thinking of you and not of Taylor Swift. All right. Thank you all for coming. And as you know, we have another session, last session of the day, starting in about a half hour. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it.